Tonight, the mystery of Flight 3407. What brought the plane down? As investigators try to piece together the final moments of the flight, relatives of the victims leave roses at the solemn scene. I'm Harry Smith. Also tonight, a new aircraft for the president. An exclusive look at the next generation of Marine One helicopters, 28 of them, at a cost of $400 million each. And a real-life look.
This is my palace.
At the setting for an underdog turned Oscar favorite.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie is off tonight. How did it happen? That is the question investigators are still trying to answer tonight, 4 nights after a Continental Connection commuter plane crashed into a home near Buffalo, New York. In the search for clues, about half the wreckage, including the engines of the turboprop, have now been removed. The goal is to have it all out by Wednesday. The grim work continues to recover the remains of the victims, 49 people who were on board the plane and the one man in the house. And relatives were allowed to visit the scene for the first time. Jeff Glor has the latest on the investigation.
About 100 family members of victims were bussed in for their first up-close look at the crash site today. What they saw is a house flattened, a plane mangled, a haunting glimpse of the grounds where 50 people lost their lives last Thursday night. The families left roses in memory.
We stood down our crews and got out of the site and allowed them an opportunity to go in there and pay their respects.
As investigators explore what kind of role ice may have played in the crash, they noted a similar plane under similar conditions landed safely 30 minutes later in Buffalo. The recovery team says they've removed 50% of the crashed plane from the scene. And a snapshot of what happened in the final 26 seconds of Continental Flight 3407 is emerging. The plane, weighing 55,000 pounds, suddenly began to gyrate wildly, like a roller coaster. The nose pitching up as much as 31 degrees and down as much as 45 degrees. The plane also rolled to the left as much as 46 degrees and to the right by as much as 105 degrees. Radar data shows the plane fell from 1,800 feet to 1,000 feet in only 5 seconds. The last flight data recording was at 900 feet, when the plane's right wing was dipped 26 degrees, the nose pointing down 30. Seconds later, the crash, flat on a single home, the nose pointing away from the airport, which was about 6 miles southwest of the crash site.
Saw the lights of the plane first. It was heading in the wrong direction. It was headed northeast. It was on a bad trajectory.
I once was lost.
Today, more than 2,000 people gathered for a service near the crash site to remember the passengers of Flight 3407.
We've seen enough tears and heard enough cries of people to fill our sadness cup for a lifetime.
We still grieve and we'll have to move on, but this has been extremely helpful, very powerful.
And as services continue at churches like this, the work continues at the crash site. Investigators are hoping to finish the bulk of their work by Wednesday because a snowstorm is expected then here in Buffalo. Harry?
Jeff Glor tonight. Thanks. President Obama is shifting gears on the taxpayer bailout of GM and Chrysler. As part of the deal, they have until tomorrow to show the Treasury Department their plans for restructuring. The car makers stand to get more than $17 billion. But Chip Reed tells us the idea of a car czar to oversee the bailout has not passed the crash test. Chip?
Well, Harry, the president returned here to the White House today after a family weekend in Chicago, and he headed straight for the Oval Office, where he faces a staggering array of tough decisions on the economy. Now, one of those big ones is that he's got to decide whether to continue spending billions of dollars on GM and Chrysler. To help him make that decision, the president has decided that instead of appointing a car czar, what he's going to do is create a presidential task force on autos, led by Larry Summers, the top economic advisor in the White House, and Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner. They'll have to get to work fast, though, because of that deadline tomorrow for GM and Chrysler to submit their massive restructuring plans. What happens next is that this new task force will analyze those plans over the coming weeks. They will then make a recommendation recommendation to the president. He will then decide whether it's worth continuing to pour billions of dollars into GM and Chrysler, or whether it's time to just force them into bankruptcy where they would be restructured. By the way, Ford is not participating in this process because they haven't asked for a bailout.
All right.
Harry?
Chip Reed at the White House tonight. Thanks. As you saw at the top of Chip's report, the president arrived back at the White House aboard Marine One. He has a big decision to make about that as well. The issue, Bob Orr reports, is whether to invest in a very expensive new fleet of presidential helicopters.
When President Obama returned today from Chicago, he arrived at the White House on Marine One, one of a fleet of presidential helicopters that is now more than 30 years old. A new Marine One is supposed to take off next year. CBS News has obtained these exclusive pictures of the next generation presidential chopper going through a test flight. But runaway costs threaten to ground the replacements. Lockheed Martin signed a contract 4 years ago to build 28 new helicopters for $6.1 billion. Numerous Pentagon-mandated changes have now ballooned the price tag to $11.2 billion, meaning each one of the new choppers would cost $400 million, or as much as Air Force One. Defense analyst Daniel Garay argues the new Marine One must be able to completely protect the president. The armored helicopter would be equipped with tons of communications gear and defensive systems capable of fending off missiles and even the effects of a nuclear blast.
The president will be able to do anything and everything he does on Air Force One or from the National Command Post in the White House.
The Pentagon says it needs 28 of the helicopters because they have to cover the president everywhere he goes, usually 3 at each stop. This week, for example, there'll be choppers in Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, and Ottawa. But critics say the helicopters are the latest example of out-of-control spending, especially unaffordable in the current recession. And Lieutenant Colonel Gene Boyer, who flew Marine One the day Richard Nixon resigned, says there's no way the government needs 28 of them.
In this economy, I believe it's a foolish investment, and I think going beyond 14 or 16 helicopters is absolutely ludicrous.
The program is so far over budget, the White House could pull the plug, but it could take years to build cheaper replacements. And security officials warn in a post-9/11 world, it's the wrong place to be cutting corners. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in Tokyo tonight, her first overseas trip since she took office. Japan is the first stop on a tour that will also take her to Indonesia, South Korea, and China. As Wyatt Andrews reports, the trip is more about money than diplomacy.
She knew when she came to Japan the economic slowdown was bad, but Secretary Clinton could not prepare for news like this. Japan's economy tanked at the end of last year at an astonishing 12.7 annual rate of negative economic growth, a number that truly signals a crisis.
But we also know that we have to work together to address the global financial crisis, which is affecting all of us.
Affecting all, maybe, but especially affecting Japan, which has tied so much of its economy to Americans buying its cars and electronics. America bought $145 billion worth of Japanese exports in 2007, but that's the number that's plummeting. Nissan, Sony, and Toyota have all announced losses and job cuts due to a recessionary spiral 3 times worse than the one in the United States.
So if we think we're in trouble,
their trouble is deeply attached to ours, and their trouble is deep. It's very deep. They are suffering the same fate as our auto workers, our consumer goods, etc.
So when the real talks begin on Tuesday, Japan will be asking Clinton about the American stimulus. There is concern the Buy American provision could harm Japanese steel, but there is fear the United States isn't spending enough.
while the talks here in Tokyo will be friendly, Clinton goes later this week to China, which is also spending big on a massive stimulus package, but where officials are far more inclined to blame the United States for the troubles here in Asia. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Tokyo.
Now the latest on Roland Burris. He replaced President Obama in the Senate 1 month ago today, but now, as Nancy Cordes reports, there are calls for Burris to quit.
Statement, I will not take any questions.
For the second day in a row, Illinois' new senator pushed back against accusations of perjury.
I hear on the TV news somebody says last night, well, if Roland Burris lied, Should he resign?
At issue is Burris's testimony before Illinois legislators during last month's impeachment trial of then-Governor Rod Blagojevich, who was accused of trying to sell President Obama's vacant Senate seat. Burris was asked if he had spoken with Governor Blagojevich's brother or any other associates about the seat.
I recall having a meeting with Lon Monk.
But in a new affidavit, Burris admits he did much more than just talk to one person. In fact, he says he talked to 4 other people with close connections and took 3 phone calls from the ex-governor's brother about raising money. In the down and dirty world of Illinois politics, some Republicans are calling on him to resign.
It's hard for him to be an effective United States Senator given what's gone on.
From a purely legal point of view, it is not a strong perjury case. All it does is suggest that Mr. Burris was a little bit more involved in all of this than he initially claimed to be.
Burris insists none of the contact was inappropriate and says he raised no money for the ex-governor. Still, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's office said today clearly it would have been better if he had been more forthcoming sooner. Harry?
Nancy Cordes at the Capitol tonight. Thanks. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, Rags and Riches. Life in the real-life slum that gave us the Oscar-nominated movie Slumdog Millionaire. The big favorite at Sunday's Academy Awards is Slumdog Millionaire. It cost $15 million to make, and so far it's taken in more than $86 million in the United States alone. It's the story of a young man who hits it big on a game show in India. He lives in Mumbai's biggest slum. Seth Doan visited this poor place with a rich cast of characters, all packed, as you'll hear, in less than 1 square mile.
A population that thrives in the shadows, now thrust into the international spotlight.
Yeah, everybody's speaking about Slumdog Millionaire, Slumdog Millionaire.
Dharavi slum, the setting for the movie Slumdog Millionaire, defies definition. Even the film's 8-year-old star was shocked by the poverty.
There are many people who stay in road, near gutters, they eat near gutters, all mosquitoes and bees are on their bodies.
It's known as one of Asia's largest slums. Around 1 million people live here, packed into an area that's less than 1 square mile. Somewhere around 50% of Mumbai's population lives in a slum like this one. And while there are the stories of struggling that you might expect, there are also some that might surprise you.
This is my palace.
21-year-old Jason Tangaraj grew up here and shares this tiny home with his parents and sister. He's working hard to get out by studying for an engineering degree.
It's a mindset for people. Dharavi is basically a slum. Have they ever come here and saw this?
Maybe not before, but they are now.
This is Dharavi.
The movie generated business for slum tours.
Yes, they filmed it from there.
Reality tours lets outsiders explore Dharavi.
It's really shocking how organized it is. There are commercial districts and residential, and there's water and electricity and services and schools.
But tours are not the only business. A maze of makeshift homes and 10,000 small businesses generate an annual GDP of more than $600 million, all in an area smaller than New York City's Central Park. There's gemstone embroidery, stones chipped to grind grain, and a leather industry which employs 40,000 people.
Believe it or not, Dharavi slum means opportunity for some. These boys make just about $50 a month here making these small leather wallets, but there were no jobs at all where they came from.
Like these boys, 2/3 of India's population lives on less than $2 a day. In this small shop, these kids say that while education would be a way out, their families depend on their earnings. But earning $1 million here, even on the Indian TV show, seems out of reach. The movie is false, Arvind tells me. A guy from Dharavi wouldn't even be considered for a TV show. When the movie opened here, it sparked scattered protests, among those offended by the word dog in the title.
Indians have always been very sensitive to the way Indian poverty and the lack of development among vast sections of the Indian population have been portrayed on cinema.
Still, Slumdog Millionaire was the 4th biggest weekend box office opening ever for any Hollywood film released in India. It's the kind of success that Jason believes could generate hope and investment in a place that could use both.
You're proud of it?
Yeah, I'm definitely proud of being here. I want to change the whole face of Dhara,
And that would be a real Hollywood ending. Seth Doan, CBS News, Mumbai.
A powerful winter storm is pummeling Southern California. Rain and high winds made travel in Los Angeles miserable and dangerous. Heavy snow closed part of Interstate 5. As much as 3 feet of snow is expected in the Sierra Nevada. Today, the Forest Service issued a high avalanche warning for the region with good reason. Here's Bill Whitaker.
Avalanches, some of the most awesome and powerful events in nature, and this winter, one of the most dangerous. Wild weather out west created perfect conditions for avalanches. Heavy snowfall atop a base made slick from rain and freezing. When a skier hits a weak spot, this can happen. They've killed 16 people so far this winter. 3 inside the usually safe boundaries of popular ski resorts, the most in more than 30 years.
Absolutely unheard of.
Nathaniel Gauthier witnessed one of the deaths in Utah in December. He was snowboarding right here with friends when suddenly an avalanche broke beneath them.
The slope fractured just about in this area and swept all the way down.
Sweeping over 27-year-old Heather Gross skiing below.
Took her for a nearly 1,000-foot vertical ride down some of the most unhospitable terrain that you could find on the mountain.
Gauthier called for help. He launched a rescue, but Gross, buried under 7 feet of snow, died of her injuries. Ski resorts are rattled. They routinely try to trigger avalanches before skiers do. But this year, that has not been enough. Following the deaths out west, the U.S. Forest Service has called for a nationwide review of avalanche control procedures. Here in Utah, they're going even further. Teaching skiers danger signs.
That's the kind of snow that's going to kill us in the backcountry.
They remind skiers to carry locator beacons to aid rescuers. They're teaching school students, almost 100,000 so far, to be AVI savvy.
This is a very violent event.
What is it you'd like the skiers to watch out for?
Well, remember, we're the ones that are triggering the avalanches that catch, carry, and kill us. So the best avalanche is the one that we don't trigger at all.
With enthusiasts using better equipment, seeking ever bigger thrills, that's a message that needs to be heard now more than ever.
Oh my God!
Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Little Cottonwood Canyon, Utah.
Medical news now, and what may be a genetic link between Parkinson's disease and melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer. A Harvard study out today found people with a family history of melanoma are nearly twice as likely to develop Parkinson's. Coming up next, reinventing the home. Finally tonight, when we think of the housing crisis, it's people struggling to avoid foreclosure. But there's another housing crisis, people with no place to live but the street. In Los Angeles, Ben Tracy reports they found at least a temporary solution, a roof on wheels.
A long day on Los Angeles' Skid Row is about to turn into an even longer night. What is it like down here?
Well, this is a beast unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Montgomery Garnett has lived on the streets here for nearly 3 years. Get on a bus! He says those who don't get on a bus to nearby shelters face a cold, hard reality.
I got to check out.
It's just bodies lying all over the street.
So when night falls, everyone finds their spot. They're going to spend the night over
there. That's where they're going to spend the night, on the sidewalk.
Montgomery used to sleep on the concrete until this landed on his sidewalk.
It's basically a portable bed, which is nice. Off the ground.
It's a cart by day that doubles as a mini camper at night. It's called EDAR.
Everyone deserves a roof.
Hollywood producer Peter Samuelson helped create the mobile shelter, a much-needed idea in Los Angeles County where 73,000 people are homeless, yet there are less than 21,000 beds in shelters.
How do we go to bed at night knowing that there are men and women and small children sleeping on pieces of cardboard lying on damp concrete?
So far, 60 EDARs have been made at this shopping cart factory in Los Angeles. They cost $500 each. The goal is to raise enough money to make 10,000 more by the end of this year.
I'm off to my EDAR.
Some are sent to shelters to use as overflow beds.
And typing is something that I have to practice.
Brenda Gardenhire is teaching herself new skills in the hopes of finding a job.
This is my little portable home, my little apartment.
She now has someplace to call home.
I'm so happy I have it. I'm like, don't ever go. It's me and you.
At night, the EDAR helps Montgomery Garnett sleep easier. And during the day, he can't help but show it off.
This is the first step in me fulfilling the American dream, which is getting my own home. So this is a start.
A push in the right direction. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
That's the CBS Evening News. Katie will be back tomorrow. I'm Harry Smith, and I'll see you in the morning on The Early Show.